Hey guys, what's going on? Sorry for the late entry this time. Welcome to another edition of SnackBites. And I think we're going to start it off by talking about the thing that everybody else is talking about, which is, oh my god, the Negan scene with Gabriel, the character development, all the crazy stuff that has happened character wise between these two in this episode. It was just mind blowing. This is a guy that we've been led to believe is just like a completely heartless sociopath for the last year and a half, essentially. And then now, all of a sudden, it's been revealed that a lot of the stuff is just coming from him missing his wife, apparently. And I loved this episode so much. I kind of had like a sort of an idea of what was coming because of the comics, but I was unsure of how they were going to do the character development for Negan, and I couldn't be more pleased. I loved that scene so much.
I have a lot of thoughts. Focusing on the Negan aspect, seeing his humanity. Probably the most. I mean, the last time we had glimpses of Negan's humanity is when he dealt with Sasha. So seeing it with Gabriel, I think he knows that Gabriel operates on a certain code of ethics, and he respects that. So he was able to be honest and frank with him, and also they were in a life or death situation and need each other to get out. So it was nice that they were able to like actually talk and use their words and come to an agreement. Uh, Negan, at one point when Gabriel is like confessing himself, and Negan's leaning against the door, he looks like, the word I want to use is like enchanted, like very serene. Not, I mean, one could almost say that maybe it was amusement, but I think he looked kind of dazzled that this guy was just telling him everything, and he told him about the satellite thing and so on and so forth. Uh,
I feel like in a lot of ways that was sort of the first time that he's actually really listened to somebody, and that somebody's words have actually gotten to him and
yeah,
affected him in any way.
Gabriel's is the only person who was able to successfully disarm Negan.
He broke through the armor somehow. I would have thought
Well,
previous that Negan would have just like discounted that
well,
whole thing
wait,
and been like, I'm
that's
just
not
gonna lure
entire.
him out. And
Well, that's not entirely true. Sasha did too in her own
true,
way. He was willing to bargain and negotiate with her. Like initially, he wanted to kill what, like three, four people at
she
Alexandria.
negotiated him down to one.
Yeah, only one's gotta get it. So like he seems more agreeable, almost in a sense, to people who aren't saviors. Uh, like he's chewed out Simon this week. Uh, he was basically chewing out all of his people. And yeah, okay, he threatened to kill Eugene, but he seems more agreeable with people who are coming over onto his side of things, as opposed to people who are already there, which is also interesting. And like it or not, I don't necessarily agree with Negan's practices, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that there wasn't some form of logic behind it. It might not be the kindest logic, but I definitely see, rationale in his thinking.
Yeah, he's always had a very calculated way of doing things right from the very beginning. I mean, he stated it, yeah, I think, like, actually in the first time that we ever saw him at the end of season six. The fact that Rick killed like 20 or 30 of his men and Negan only killed two in response. I mean, that's a very, like, controlled reaction if you really think about it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Yes, the two that he killed died in a very awful and public way, but it's still only two lives versus, the 20 that Rick murdered in their sleep.
Well, no, some of those guys are really shitty, but yes.
Sure, but, if you're just, like, adding up the tally, he was right. He killed less of Rick's men than Rick had killed of his, so there was always, like, a rationale there. I thought it was really interesting that, like, during that whole thing when he's talking to Gabriel through the door, Gabriel goes into that whole thing about how he's talking about how he locked his congregation out and let them die, much the way he had just locked Negan out and now had the choice of letting him die or opening the door and saving him,
Mm.
right? Like, that was really interesting. It was like, almost him making up for his sin of locking out the whole congregation and letting them die
Or maybe
by
that's why he
opening
went.
the door and giving the gun back to
Or
Negan.
maybe that's why he went after Gregory's punk ass. It's because he didn't want to keep leaving people behind and locking people out, whether they were good or bad or in between. Which is still dumb because Gregory did not deserve the help. But anyway, seeing those two work together, I think they should have put more of the Walker guts like on top of their head and stuff. Like I know it's gross, but they did not have enough coverage. Obviously, they were discovered midway through their walkabout, and
That was amazing camera work, by the way, that whole scene. They shot it like from the viewpoint of a walker. It was handheld in the middle of all of them, and they kept coming up and like looking into the screen and walking away. I loved that from a cinematography standpoint. That was brilliant.
well, I just wanted to say for those who may have missed it, Negan specifically asked Father Gabriel if anyone had he known anyone who had gotten sick from putting on the Walker guts, and you know, Father Gabriel says, "Well, we're from Georgia." No, but keep in mind that whenever they had done it before, there was always some sort of like an extra barrier, like a poncho or a sheet or whatever. And I don't believe Gabriel was bitten, but he got sick from the putrid guts, like being on him too long, and it's possible that it was even on him longer than needed because he was put in the holding cell. So I don't know how long before he got a chance to like clean and wash that crap off of him. But he's just like sick, not I've
Yeah,
been bitten
I don't
sick.
think he's been bitten.
No.
I think that Negan was alluding to something that the Alexandrians have just not seen at this point. Apparently, uh, two final thoughts that I thought were really interesting. First of all, I liked how there was like an explanation almost for the wives thing because I always wondered about that. It
Hmm.
was just like a really, you know how he has like multiple wives, and it was just like a weird dynamic, like that the harem, and they're all wearing black and all this like weird stuff. And so to me, just from like a psychological standpoint, it seems to me that the whole reason why he had all these other wives that he invented that were kind of superficial is because the pain of losing his first real wife was so much that I don't think I think he's kind of like avoiding ever getting close to another woman ever again.
Well, he admits that he cheated on his wife gratuitously.
Yeah,
I
his
think
intimacy
what I
issues.
think is most interesting about Negan's wives is the fact that he would prefer them be wives as opposed to Negan's hoes or Negan's side bitches
Yeah, that's
or
true.
Negan's ladies. Like he'd rather they be
He
wives. I
calls
think
them wives, which is like a term of respect on some
like
level.
even though there's he's going the Mormon way of it and he has sister wives, but he still made them wives
Yeah,
as opposed to Negan's harem.
yeah. And they also
Negan's
had
bottom bitch. Like like
and they always had the chance to leave. So that's one thing I thought was really
and they
interesting.
do make these deals to be with Negan, like Sherry, like the chick with the boyfriend. They could have just stayed regular worker people, and they decided to do an upgrade. I don't really understand that exactly. In that, if you chose to be his wife as opposed to staying in your regular station with everyone else on the ground floor, and then they feel like I don't know that like the way they were acting as if like he was like beating them or something. They were all like quiet and somber, like hardly make eye contact. I thought that was weird. I don't understand why the dynamics are that way because he
I
doesn't seem pro violence against women.
I don't think it was because he was mistreating them. I think that it's just I think almost every single one of those women left like a significant other who's still on the bottom level suffering to be with Negan. And I think it's the guilt of doing that, It's
Mm.
I mean, is
So,
that one example, I don't remember her name, but remember that like super young girl and he sits down and he's like, you chose to be
her
here
boyfriend
and
who he burned later.
right, Mark. His name was Mark, remember? He's like, Mark got the iron. There's this whole weird
Because she
thing.
was still seeing him on the side.
Exactly. He's like, the one thing that you can't do is what? And she's like, cheat on you. Or cheat on you. And he's like, correct, cheat on me. And then he's like, if you want to go back to Mark, it's fine. Like this whole thing. And so I think it's the guilt of the fact that they all kind of signed a deal with the devil. That's the way
They
I
did sign it.
that's the way I interpreted it at
I
least.
still maintain if Sasha had been around And I think he was interested in her in that way. She would have been like, she probably would have taken the deal, but only on the stipulation that she was his only wife. 'Cause
And I think he may
Sasha
have,
don't play.
yeah, and I think he may have made that deal. I mean, based on everything we've seen. Um, the
He
other,
respected her.
yeah, definitely. And then the other thing that I thought was just really interesting is when when Gabriel opened up the door and said to him, "You're forgiven." And there's like this moment where they're staring at each other, and I'm like, "Oh God, Gabriel, that was so dumb. Like, why did you just do that?" And
Mm-hmm.
Negan punches him in the face, but it's like a light punch, and then he
His head didn't
doesn't.
even really move back.
Yeah, he barely, and then he didn't take the gun, which is something that we've just never seen from this character. I mean, he's usually the kind of person who's always trying to get the jump on the person and the upper hand and some kind of dominance over them. I thought he was gonna like take the gun, punch Gabriel, and then like use the gun to try and get out alone, just like let Gabriel be eaten by the walkers. And the fact that
No.
in the beginning of the episode he rushed him and was so quick to disarm him, but then after that conversation he lets him keep the gun, which totally gives Gabriel the upper hand. He was like a
Well,
changed
no,
man after that conversation.
not necessarily the upper hand. I think Negan, he meant what he said, and they have an understanding. If they have an understanding, he doesn't need Gabriel's gun. He said, "I have Lucille, you have the gun." Like, he fair is fair, and he stayed to his word. What was most interesting to me was that Gabriel took the knee without being asked. Negan didn't ask him to take the knee when everyone else did. He just did it like, oh, well, I'm reading the room.
To be fair, we don't really know that. I mean, Negan could have been like on the way
I
up the
was,
stairs, like, "Come on,
I
bro,
was
you got to
actually
take the
thinking,
knee, otherwise this isn't gonna work. You have to play the role, otherwise I'm
I
gonna have you
did,
killed." You know, I
I
mean,
did consider that. I
it's
did consider that, like, but
it would be stupid for him not to take a knee just for appearance's sake.
but it didn't look.
But
And I don't. Given Gabriel's reaction, like he looks around, everyone else takes the knee first, and he's like, and then he finally takes the knee after everyone else. And Negan's not really paying him any attention. He's addressing the room.
it could also be because of the fact that he was treated so much like better than he had anticipated. It could be that he doesn't really want the other saviors to know that he had that respect from Negan. You know,
He's not
that's
trying
bad
to.
for both of
He's not
them.
trying to antagonize him.
Yeah, that's bad for both of them, just from like a hierarchical standpoint. I mean, Negan doesn't want to let all the other saviors think that he's going soft on a hostage, right? So that's part of it, and then Gabriel wants to remain stealth, like he doesn't have any privileges, so that maybe he can get the jump on somebody else later on. So it makes sense for him to do it
Negan makes it
too.
clear. He says, "Gentlemen, take him to number 2, gently."
Yeah,
Gently.
he did put an emphasis on that, like don't mistreat this one. I like him or something. Whereas like with Daryl, it's like take away his clothes and give him dog food.
Well,
So
that's another story. Oh, we've gone way over.
yeah, but anyway, there was a lot to talk about
This
between
is
those
becoming
two.
a snack meal.
It was just I loved that scene. It's probably one of my favorite episodes, honestly, of the whole show at this
It was
point.
a really great episode.
It just the way
It's
they
fascinating.
yeah, it was really fascinating. The character
Thumbs
development
up.
was so deep, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next in the season.
Thumbs
Thumbs
up.
up. If you guys like what we have to say in our content, please subscribe below. Also follow us on Instagram at RLRashone, and also check out the new website, www.thelivingrashone.com. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.